With an Iraq progress report expected to come out in 5 weeks' time, 2 senators decided to put their August recess aside and head to Baghdad to see what's happening for themselves. What did they find? Let's ask them. Joining us now from Baghdad, Democratic Senators Dick Durbin of Illinois and Bob Casey of Pennsylvania. Senator Casey, let's start with you since this is your very first trip to Baghdad. What were you expecting when you went over there? What did you find?
Well, John, I think the expectation that I had is what we see on the news when you see the battlefield that Iraq is. But in particular, what I noticed is very evidently, as soon as we arrived here, the great dedication of our troops. Tremendous young men and women from across the country who have done great work already. I think it's time that the president sit down with the Congress and work on a new direction for Iraq. Right. We haven't seen that yet from the administration.
Certainly no one is questioning the dedication of the troops. What they are questioning is whether or not those troops are making any progress. Senator Durbin, Brookings Institution scholars Michael O'Hanlon and Ken Pollack were over there recently, wrote an editorial in the New York Times in which they said, yes, there is progress, and the progress is significant enough that U.S. troops should stay on the ground at least until the beginning of 2008. Did you see any of the progress that they were talking about?
There are 2 important parts of this story. The military part, as Senator Casey said, where our men and women are doing their best and making real progress. We found that today as we went to a forward base in an area that in the 5th year of the war is the first time that we're putting troops on the ground to intercept al-Qaeda. But I have to tell you, there's another side to this story that the Brookings Institution shouldn't miss. As we are seeing military progress, the political scene is very discouraging. We have seen this al-Maliki government, which was once branded a government of national unity, coming apart. We see Shias leaving, Sunnis walking out. It's not the kind of promise that we want in terms of bringing stability to this country.
But hold on, let me back you up there. You said you did see military progress?
Well, what we find is that the surge has troops going into areas where for 4.5 years we have not seen our military in action. And naturally, they are routing out the al-Qaeda in those areas. That's a good thing. But there is no evidence of the government of Iraq in these areas. There are no Iraqi policemen, no Iraqi soldiers. No, these are Americans.
I understand all of that, but Senator Durbin, everybody in the Democratic Party is saying that the surge has failed. And Senator Casey, do you agree with your colleague that there are some signs of military progress here?
Sure there are, John, and we've said from the beginning that our troops are doing their job. The problem here is that the President of the United States continues to insist on a stay-the-course policy, no change in direction, no sense that the American people can determine that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That's why I think there's a bipartisan agreement right now to change the course. I think the president should listen to the will of the American people.
So, Senator Casey, you supported this bill to bring troops home. Have you seen anything to change your mind on that while you're there?
No, I supported Levin Reed, and I voted initially, way back at the beginning of the year, against the surge. And I think that they were the right votes. They continue to be the right votes. But we've got to make sure that the diplomacy and the political work that's done in Washington, as well as in Baghdad, we're seeing now that the Iraqi government officials have left. We're seeing that Sunni representatives have walked out and are boycotting. Right. So the political work in Baghdad and Washington has to match the courage and the dedication of our troops. We haven't seen that yet.
No question. There's some political problems. There are enormous political problems, not the least of which is that Parliament's on vacation for a month. Senators Durbin and Bob Casey, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you, John.
Well, talk about thinking on your feet. A store clerk in New York takes advantage of a not so bright